What's going on, everyone? I just wanted to stop by real quick before this podcast starts and say you should like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow me on all my social medias at John D. Klauser. It's literally the same name as the name that you subscribe to on this YouTube channel. So enjoy this clip, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
Welcome to The John Show with your host, John Doogie Klauser.
All right. You know what's so funny, guys? So, what's up? We're here on a new episode of the podcast. So, I realized doing that whole thing. So I have to press the screen, push a button, push this button, go over here, push this button over here, clap the clapper, and then all to do this podcast. It was just, I realized that how ridiculous that is. If you're on the outside looking in and if you have no idea what I'm doing, and you have no idea the way of filmmaking is done, you'd be like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And why is he clicking these stuff? And then he's hitting a clapper. But anyway, how are you guys? This is episode, 45 of The John Show. I'm your host, John D. Klauser. I hope you guys are doing well. It is a new year. It's 2021, guys. It is 2021. COVID no longer exists. It's not here anymore. Racism is no longer. There's no need to ever do another protest. And Trump's not going to be president in what was it? Is it the 26th or the 22nd? Something like that. One of those days. I think it's in that week. It's in the 20th. Because then the only other thing would be 30 or 31. I know it's not one of those 2 days. So it's in the 20s. We know that right now. Let me see. Actually, why don't we just Google this right now? What is Trump last day? Sorry. It's 1 day ago. 30 days resign. Doesn't have anything. Well, anyway, I know it's in the 20s. But, yeah. Welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Do you guys have a New Year's resolution? Anything that you guys have that you want to do better at? Want to get better at eating? Getting healthier eating habits? Going to the gym, which I guess would be within the same things. Get a new hobby. Not be so angry anymore. I don't know. What is it? What could it be? I don't know. For me, I was I didn't even think about it till the other day when someone was someone said it to me. Did you have any New Year's resolutions? I totally forgot. People still did that. To tell you the truth, I had no idea people still were thinking about that. I'm dude, we're in a pandemic right now. I don't. Thinking about a New Year's resolution is the last thing on my mind. And if you don't know, New Year's is my birthday. I turned 32. Crazy. What's so funny is a lot of people think I'm 25, which is awesome, and I'll take it every day, all day. And because I'm thinking when I'm 40, I'll be 30. I'll look like I'm 30. That'd be awesome. I'll take that. Or I look like I'm 35, which is even better, which is even cooler, I guess. I don't know. Adding 5 more years isn't terrible. But yeah, it was so weird because this whole year's just been completely shadowed by the whole COVID stuff and the whole pandemic, and I've just been haven't really been thinking about it. Never really thought about my birthday. Didn't really do anything for Christmas or Hanukkah. I told you earlier in another podcast that I lit some candles, or it wasn't even candles. I twisted plastic candles and it turned on a menorah. It was really cool. It was hilarious. Besides that, nothing for my birthday. I didn't do anything. I ended up working. We had a snowstorm in Missouri. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and there was a big snowstorm. It wasn't that bad in the sense of as we only got 3 inches, but if you're trying to drive in, it was awful. I had to drive to work, and it was horrendous. Was petrified the entire time driving. Not gonna lie to you. It was not a good time. It was not fun. Got really angry. The fact that I had to do this, especially on my birthday. I don't know. Have I ever told you guys the story? So when I don't know if you don't know, I'm adopted. And one of the cool things about being adopted from a third world country, and if you don't have a birth certificate or anything like that information, well, most of these third world countries, they don't provide you this stuff. It's just these things don't exist. Like, these are first world advantages, you could call. And when I came to the States and I became an American citizen, they asked me, like, so what's your birthday? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you don't know your birthday? I'm like, they're like, what's your birth certificate? I'm like, I don't have a birth certificate. I don't know. I don't have any of that information. So they were like, well, how about January 1st? I'm like, that's cool. And like, that's how it is. That's how I got my birthday. Most of the time, people are born and they're pushed out and they're like, oh, what day is it? And they're like, oh yeah, it's September 13th. And that's their birthday. Instead, for me, I was sitting in a really cold room talking to a lady who was like, well, we could just do January 1st. Would that work? I'm like, that's perfectly fine. And that's how I got a birthday. It's like, I love telling people that story because people are like, well, happy birthday still. You should have fun. Like, I'm like, yeah, like, it's not a sad thing to be sad about. It's just an interesting fact. It's just a weird, interesting story. Like anything, like if you watching someone eat a carrot weird, or having someone eat a pizza from like the crust first, which I think is weird as shit. Some people do that. It sounds awful. Actually, I want to know who does that. If there's anyone out there, if anyone watches this, do you know anyone, or do you do it yourself? Do you ever eat the crust first on a pizza? And I know some people do, like, well, what if it has a cheese in it? And that's gross too. I don't like the cheese in the crust because the whole point of the crust is to be basically a palate cleanser from what you just got done eating of said pizza, of the toppings and everything like that. So you had a bunch of cheese. Every bite had cheese in it already. Why do you need more cheese in the pizza crust? It's one, selfish, gluttonous, and stupid. You heard it here, guys. That is the God honest truth. I think it's so stupid to do that. I think that is dumb. I think people who wear, like, if they wear 2 pairs of socks. So I used to date this girl, an adorable girl in every other sense other than this one thing that annoyed the shit out of me. Amazing, an amazing woman, intelligent, doctor. But the one thing that annoyed the shit out of me, that when she worked out, she would always wear 2 pairs of shoes. So one long pair of did I say shoes? She wore 2 pairs of socks. I appeared. Guys, English and words are sometimes hard, okay? Let's sit here and let me explain this to you. That shoes, in my mind, this is how it worked. Shoes and socks both have S's and O's in it. They both have an S and an O. So I just assumed when I said shoes, 2 pairs of shoes, I was thinking socks. All right, back to the story. So she was an amazing woman, awesome doctor. The one thing, when she worked out, she wore 2 pairs of socks. She wore a long pair of socks, like up high, and then she wore an ankle pair of socks. But the thing is that annoyed the shit out of me. This is what annoyed me. She would put the ankle sock on first, and then put the long sock on. I mean, I would be spending the night at her place, and she'd be sleeping, and I'd be laying there in bed looking up at the ceiling and thinking, I'm like, why does she do this? And I would ask her, why do you do this? Like, doesn't it make more sense to put the long sock on first and then have the short sock on? So just in case if the short sock comes off of your ankle, it's easier to get to instead of having to take another pair of socks off and then fix a pair of socks, then put another pair of socks on. So basically you're doing the whole process of putting socks on again. And to me, it just seems like more work. I'm strictly just thinking, like, strictly just on simple, less work. It makes more sense to have the long sock and then the ankle sock. all she would ever tell me was like, you just need to stop worrying about this. There's nothing to worry about this. Like, this is not a big deal. I'm like, this is a giant deal. This is horrific. I'm sitting here and I'm like, and still to this day, I'll be sitting twirling my pen and I'm just like thinking, I'm like, why does this woman do this? Why? And I've asked other people, and people just like, and I've had mixed feelings. I've had mixed answers every time. I don't understand why you would ever do why you would ever put the ankle sock on and then the long sock on. It boggles my mind. It honestly does. It does. And these are the weird things that I think about in my life. So if I would have you know what? If I would put half of the energy that I put into thinking about that into like maybe trying to solve COVID, I would have probably been the one that solved it or gotten a vaccine for it first. It could have been me. They could have been me. But instead, what I'm doing is I'm thinking about ex-girlfriends and why they put socks on differently than I do and how I'm judging them on that, which is the weirdest thing in the world to do. It's not really a judgment. It's just like, I'm wondering, why do you do that? It just doesn't seem practical to do it. You're just so much better off doing it long sock, ankle sock. Actually, I think that's gonna be the title: long sock, ankle sock, long sock, ankle sock. One of the funnest things to do is to come up with titles for this thing, because what I usually do is I'll do the description. So, and I think I might have already talked about this before, but whatever. It's my podcast. We can do whatever the fuck I want to. And what you do is I'll do like 3 different things that I talked about, and from those 3 different things, I'll try to mix them together and see how I can figure out a title from it. Or if I say something that's interesting or something I think that's funny, then I'll use that as a title. But so anyway, yeah, like New Year's resolutions. I guess like though I've been thinking about it ever since my friend asked me about it. And I'm like, what are my New Year's resolutions this year? I'm like, I guess try to get my Instagram page higher with more like followers. But I already think I have a lot of followers. Like I have like 17 something, which I think is more than should ever follow me. Whoever should ever check out my page. And I love it all. I think it's awesome. I think it's one of the coolest things. For me, like, I follow a lot of different people. And one of the coolest things about that is that, like, I parachute into all these different lives in, like, picture form, video form. Some people just post memes. Some people post workout stuff only. Some people post about their family and their dogs and their pregnancy. Other people just post just selfies, and it's them just being like, oh, I'm just me. I'm just being me. And I think that is all really awesome. And I take all of that and sometimes use it for things. And that is why I do it. And because it's like, oh, well, that's a really cool little interesting thing that someone looks at life that I don't look at like that. Or I never thought about looking at like that. So maybe I should use that little sparkle and just add it to like something I'm doing. But it's interesting in life. Like, like I guess write more. That's always my thing. Like the more I keep hearing is like I should be writing more like 2 to 3 hours in a day. You should dedicate like a large amount of time into writing. But like I only do 30 minutes a day, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm good enough. That's good. Isn't that good enough? 30 minutes of writing a day, which in turn, I guess it's at this point, it's gotten the conditioning of it. Before it used to be doing 30 minutes was like really hard because I didn't know. I'm like, what should I do? But the more I do it, now it's more. Outline is key. If you have an outline and you have an understanding of like, okay, your header of what you want to do. So you want to talk about, you want to talk about the sky. Then you have like 3 bullet points. I always go rule of threes. When you do rule of threes, it's like you want to talk about the clouds, and then you talk about the cloud, and then you do 3 little sub things about that cloud. And then you want to talk about the blue sky. Then you talk about 3 things about the blue sky. And then you want to talk about how it turns dark at night. And you talk about night, and then 3 different things about night. And then boom. And you do a closing, like, conclusion kind of thought about the whole idea. And you maybe want to do like 3 additional little tags. And it's really like just doing things like that, having an idea like that, and then being able to go in. You have the outline. You go into writing. You sit down. You start typing. And you're able to do, okay, here's bullet point 1. Here's bullet point 2, bullet point 3, and bullet point 3. Like bullet point 1 could have like 4 sentences. And then the second one could have like, 4. Another one could have 5. And you have like a rhythm to it. And you slowly start able to add more meat to the skeleton. And that's, since doing that, and the more I do that, the easier it's become to do 30 minutes has become really easy. I'm able to like come down with a whole idea. If I go into it, so I take Sunday off. Sunday is my day of rest for mostly all of like my media stuff. I don't post. Sometimes I'll post some like on my stories, like a meme, and I'm like, hey, go check out my podcast. Don't do anything else. And I'm like, oh yeah. And so I go into that day. That day is like, okay, John, you want to think of a couple ideas of what you want to talk about. You want to talk about a story of forgiveness. You want to talk a story about love. You want to talk a story about doing a cross-country trip. Have those ideas, and then with those ideas I'll go into Monday, and the Monday is usually just going into and just kind of thinking of basically an outline for all 3. Or if there's one I really like, I'm like, okay, this one, I think this one has like a lot of potential, so I'm going to strictly dedicate writing an outline for this per se thing. And then of course what's always great about having an outline, you're always able to go back to square one. You always are going to be able to remember, like you go far out in the story and you're talking, and you're like, then at one point you're talking about aliens and how a crazy thing that's going to possess all humans, and it's going to go with a zombie, and then there's going to be a land monster, and you're like, whoa, this is not exactly anything about what I was wanting to talk about. Well, you can always go back to square one. You can see back to your outline of what you were really trying to do, and maybe there might be something that you can say, and you can talk about all that stuff that you just wrote about, and you can put in the sense of and you saw the poster, and the poster was this movie, and it had all this stuff, and boom, there. But the only way you're able to get there and you're able to stay on fucking track is having this outline. And it's for me, I've learned it's to be very, very helpful to have that. So I've been watching a lot of car videos lately, and it's weird, just things on like Hondas and Toyotas, and it's mostly just about if you have your car runs kind of weird, or it's hard to start in the wintertime because it's cold, it tells you little problem solving tips and stuff like that. And it's very interesting, but I've realized I never want to have a BMW or a Mercedes or anything like that. And because just getting an oil change should be an easy thing to do for a car. This is something that you're using probably every day, most likely. You're getting, or at least 5 out of 7 days out of the week, maybe 6 out of 7. You might not do anything on a Sunday, but on a Saturday, you might go get your groceries and get everything for the week. That kind of thing. And oil change should be super easy to do. It shouldn't be a difficult task to have done, but the more I'm looking into looking at BMWs or Mercedes like that, it's you have to have special tools because these are foreign cars, but they don't use universal tools. They use specific tools just for their cars. And then they don't run that long because the fact that they have a bigger engine, and it burns faster. So the more that it the bigger the engine is, and the more I'm thinking the cylinders. I know I'm very elementary with this. Please fucking forgive me. Oh my God, he doesn't know, but at least I'm trying. I'm trying to learn some new things. I'm trying to be more of a man. Like, I can do my own oil. I can do that. It's like the easiest, super easy. It took me like 15 minutes to do. It took longer for me to just sit there and wait for all the oil to come out of the tank than it did to like actually like put the new filter on and put the new oil in. It's not hard. Super easy. But yeah, the bigger the engine is, the more it burns. It's like with anything, like, like a smaller thing, it might not get as much power, but the longevity of it is going to be more versus like something that can like lift a lot of weight but can't run that fast. It's really big. So it's that kind of thing. And I don't like that idea. I want a car that's going to be able, if I just take care of it, change the oil, 300,000 miles, 350, 400,000 miles would be awesome. And another thing is like, I'm going to always get used. There's no need to ever get buy a brand new car. I don't think so. I don't see it. And I have friends that are in the car world, so I'm like, hey, can you come and like just check out this car, make sure it like is running smooth and do everything like that. And what's really awesome, and like, cause like I've realized, like, I'm like, okay, I can get a really good car for like 4-5K. It'll be a Honda, and that's what I want. I love Hondas. That's what I've always had. I've had one Dodge Dakota, which was awesome, but when it hit about was it about 200,000 miles? I think it was about 200,000 miles. It just kind of started shitting the bed pretty hard, and so we just got rid of it. It wasn't, yeah. At the end of it, my dad was driving it more than I was, because I bought it and I used it for 1 year, my senior year of high school. My parents got it the summer for my senior year of high school. And then I went up to school, my freshman year of college, I went to school up in South Dakota, and then I'm getting a Honda Element, the box car. Awesome car. Now my mom has that, and that's just like a random ass car they have. Because my parents also have like a Prius. My parents have a Prius, a truck, that Element, and then they have a fucking Winnebago. I think it's a Winnebago. It's on that realm of a Winnebago. It's weird as shit, but it's like updated, and it has all like 2020. It was like 2019 when they got it, so it had all 2019 interior upgrades and everything like that. It's like, I'm like, okay, this is random. And then I think COVID hit, and they just never been able to use it. It's kind of funny. But yeah, like it's interesting. Like, I never was really ever into cars. I remember my dad. He showed me how to do it once. My dad showed me how to change the oil once in my car. I had a Honda Accord. And I'm like, okay, I got it. But I'm like, I was in my mind at that time, I'm always like, well, I'm going to have a job at that point. And I'm like, why would I not just pay to get it done? And now, at being 32 years old, I'm like, fuck that. I'd rather change the oil myself, because I just feel more, I feel more prideful knowing how to do it. Feeling like, maybe, I don't know how many people know how to change the oil. I'm assuming probably 4 out of 10 people know how to change the oil in their car. And then 2, I don't trust going to one of these like just random ass little, or these like Jiffy Lubes or anything like that, because they just hire anybody off the street, and you don't know how good that person is at changing oil. They could like not screw it, because I've had like the bolt that goes to the oil tank on the bottom has been like stripped so many times. I've had to buy a couple new ones, because I've gone to those places, because I was like, yeah, I don't want to do it. It's cold out. I'm just lazy. I just, I'm really busy today, and it's just easier if I just do this so I can go do something else at the same time. It's just, it was just easier so I can be basically two different places at one time. And then I was like, but no, now I'm like, no, I like to do it. And the last time I just did it like 2 weeks ago, and it was like super easy. Just I have a whole tank. I have the barrel thing, the tub, and then I have the little funnel. It's not hard. It's easy. Have someone teach you. You can YouTube it. It's just so awesome. That's what's so great. And it was funny. I was talking to this person who's a senior in high school, and I know that probably sounds weird, but I was talking to her. I'm like, so like when you guys do like your essays and stuff like that, it's way harder now. I'm assuming to like copy and paste stuff, and like, oh yeah, they put their shit through all these different programs to like find if you've plagiarized and stuff. So I'm like, holy fuck, that's crazy. Because like I remember back in the day, like one, you had to actually do a lot of research by going to the library, but another thing was that like I looked back on it now, like it'd be so much easier to do so much more, like to do schooling, to do essays, because there's so much easier ways to get information. There's podcasts and actual like there's like books, and then there's just articles that have been written. It's just like I'm like, dude, it'd be so much easier, but it's also a lot easier to like just plagiarize. So I guess it is having to have all these different programs. I have this one little weird little story I wanted to say. So every week I get my weekly groceries, and this past week it was weird because I knew that that we had a snowstorm on the 1st, and the 1st was on a Friday. So it was like, and I'm recording this on January 5th. Technically it's Tuesday, January 5th. It's at 12:40 right now at night. And because I always like to wait at the very last minute to get any of my things done. It's the best way to make sure that you feel rushed, and that you don't produce the best stuff you can do. Anyway, so I went to the grocery store on the Thursday, so New Year's Eve, and I bought like a Foster's, Australian beer, quote unquote Australian beer. Drink one of those for my birthday. Pretty cool. Pretty. I guess it was all right. It was a lot of beer though. But anyway, so I bought my weekly stuff, and every time it's the same thing. I buy water, sparkling water, some chips, ground beef, rice, apples, peanut butter, and that's usually what I buy, and that's just what I eat, and just that's what I work. It works for me. Might work for you. Anyway, so I went to when you go to Walmart, you get the little plastic bag at the meat department area, and you put your packages of meat inside that so it doesn't leak, just in case if the packaging is a little bit loose, the blood from the meat won't get out and just bleed on everything. It's just basically a sanitary thing. So another thing too is like it's clear, so you can just easily just scan it and just put it into another bag and keep that separate from all the other bags. So it's like basically like 2 layers of protection from you getting any blood on any other thing that you have, maybe in your car, in your cart, other objects, anything like that, Well, the guy who's checking me out, he scanned the first one, so I was like, oh, great. So he took every single one. I bought 3 different things of just, 2.5 pounds of ground beef. And he took every one of them out and scanned every single one of them. And he put it inside a plastic bag, the plastic bags they have there. And then took the bag that all the meat was in before, and then put that inside that bag, the new one, with all the other meats. And I saw him do that, and then my eyes were watching him put it inside the bag, and then I looked up at him, and he made eye contact with me, and I made eye contact with him, and we both stood there, and I was like, and I didn't say it, but my eyes were saying, it's like what you did was dumb, it, that was silly, but it was this odd moments in life, man. But I have about 20 seconds left until this podcast until my little alarm goes off. But if you've gotten this far, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. 2021, guys, we're here. It's a new year. I don't know if you guys have heard my stomach rumble or not, but we're here. New year. We're here, new year. Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Be safe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. I didn't know. I heard my stomach rumble, and I was like, oh, man, that was really loud. I'm like, if I could hear it, I'm pretty sure you could hear it in the microphone. But I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.